All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Alex is going to get started in just a moment, but just a quick note. Alex and I will be your hosts and presenters today. Michelle isn't feeling well, and so we stepped in, but we were both here for the first session. So we've gotten to know you all a little bit, and yeah, Alex, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Helen. And so welcome everyone to session number 2 of Recruitment Boot Camp. Hope everyone's doing well today. As always, this is put on today by the Star Center team. And here today we have me and Helen, who will be your presenters. And then Mariah is hanging out behind the scenes. So if you have any technical issues, please send her a message in the chat, or if you need to, you can email her at mblake@clinicians.org, and she will get you all sorted out if there's any technical problems. For anyone that doesn't know, the Star Center is part of the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved, ACU. We were started about 25 years ago by members of the National Health Service Corps, and our job is just to make sure that health centers everywhere have access to the resources they need to be able to, fill all their workforce needs and make sure that we're serving the underserved populations that we work for. So the Star Center is our NTAP, our National Training and Technical Assistance Partner. And at the Star Center, we specifically focus on recruitment and retention of clinical care providers and then staff in general. All right, and so I'm sure everyone's familiar with Zoom at this point in our lives, too familiar with Zoom, but we're recording this session, so everything here you'll be able to rewatch if you need, and the slides will be available as well, so don't worry if you miss something, you'll be able to go back and look on that. I see some people are on their cameras, that's excellent, as long as you're feeling up for it. This is supposed to be a collaborative learning experience, so thanks everyone for having cameras on. And then obviously you can use the chat box. If you have any questions while we're going along, feel free to put those in there. Like I said, message Mariah, and we're gonna have an evaluation at the end of the session. And so please fill that out. That really helps us with BIPIC and everything. But then let me turn it over to Mariah for one moment. She just has an announcement about the discussion board.
Sure, thanks. And hi, everybody. I've been back and forth with a lot of y'all over email over the last week. I'm sure some of you are aware, most of you should be aware, our discussion board had a few hiccups with actually posting last week's homework assignment. It kind of held it in drafts instead of posting it all the way through, so it didn't quite make it through to you. But that is up and live, and we'll be extending that so y'all can go back into week 1. I believe it's titled session 1 in our discussion board. And access that, as well as the session materials from the session 1 and session 2 once those are available. If you haven't been able to log in yet, feel free to email me, and I will be happy to sort out those technical difficulties that might be going on with our site. And yeah, the email should have come from CHC Workforce, info@chcworkforce.org with just your username, password, all of that. But if that didn't make it to you or got caught in a spam filter or something, I'll be happy to help you out. So just send me an email. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mariah. And now, if everyone wants to, we're going to do a Mentimeter, so a little icebreaker today that Helen set up. I'm also going to put this in the chat, but you can go to menti.com and enter the code on there, or you can use your smartphone and scan the QR code on the screen, and it should take you to the Menti poll that we have going. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Helen is going to share the Mentimeter with us.
Great, thank you so much. I also just put a link that you can click if that's easier. And yeah, I'll share my screen. Okay. This has us on the leaderboard, and we're going to go back. And we don't want question 1 of 3. All right. So, Alex, will you on yours ask the question?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a quiz. This is like a trivia quiz. This is a fun, it's like whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter, but I haven't done this one in a while. It's been a few weeks. So I believe that when I start, it'll show you the question and then there'll be a countdown, but I'll also read out the question. So we're just gonna go. And Alex, I know I asked you to do something, but I take it back. Never mind. I'm
Okay.
remembering how this one works. All
No
right,
worries.
ready? Oh. Which country has the most islands? You have 17 seconds. 10. 5. 3. 2. 1. All right, and Indonesia got the most, and New Zealand got the second most, but it was Sweden. Shocking, I know. Wow, how exciting. All right, our next icebreaker question is, where is the only tropical rainforest in the United States? And you have 19 seconds. Okay, we've got Hawaii, Puerto Rico. I didn't see all of them, but Puerto Rico's the answer. Hawaii, Washington State, Washington, the Amazon, Olympic National State Park, Florida. Great guesses. Great guesses.
I wish
All right.
Florida had a tropical rainforest.
Honestly.
Washington, that's like a temperate cloud forest or something. I don't know. I forget what.
A temperate cloud forest. Great.
I just
Also
made that
good.
up probably.
Incredible. All right. And our final question is, answer fast to get more points. Again, points don't matter. What's the name of the deepest point in Earth's oceans? The Tonga Trench, Marianas Trench, Kuril-Komachta Trench, Mario Sunshine Trench. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we've got the Tonga Trench or the Marianas Trench, and wow, half and half. Again, incredible job. I believe it does assign points, but we don't know we don't know to whom. So let's see what our leaderboard says. Oh, it does know who. Great job, John. Incredible, our winner. Wow, but again, points don't matter. Thanks for playing. What a fun icebreaker.
I like
The
wine.
ice broken. What was that?
I like wine.
There you go. I will work on getting that out to you. I make no promises. All right, great. Alex, back to you.
All right, let me share my screen again. Oh, I gotta find the correct screen. There we go. So there were our answers. Oh, and Helen put like awesome little pictures of them. Yeah, the Sweden one got me. I would have said Indonesia. Okay. But so once again, welcome back to session 2 of our recruitment boot camp. And just to go back over our goals, the big goals are learn from the material presented and us expert faculty, but also from each other, right? So sharing your challenges and strengths and being open for that discussion. You guys have the inside track because you're doing this in the present day. And, we just want to allow everyone to have that wealth of knowledge, and everyone's got different perspectives, whether you're brand new and you're saying, oh, from a first timer, this is what this looks like to me, or if you're super experienced and have done a bunch of this stuff before, everyone has a unique and very useful perspective and knowledge to share. So arrive with questions and leave with knowledge. I like that. Oh, and develop and implement a strategy, right? Because the whole point of this is to actually get some stuff done and make some progress in that whole retention and recruitment process. So tools that we have. So obviously we're going to be doing the webinars and everything. But then when we put the homework up, and again, apologies for the little issue with our discussion board last time, but those discussion sections on the board there, and the homework that gets posted and everything, that's going to be really important because those are the actual actionable steps that you're going to be taking. So if you have any questions or challenges with that, obviously feel free to email the Star Center or Michelle or any of us, and we will be able to help you out through that process. All right. Expectations. Obviously, we all want to be here and try to share and present something at least once, right? This is collaborative. And we all want to share kind of our perspectives on the learning process we're going through here and our experiences in our different health centers. Okay, I'm sure you all saw and went over the learning objectives last time, but the first part, that assessment, that's really critical, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second and why assessment and then tracking data after that assessment is so important to building your recruitment plan. But then we're going to actually develop or update that R&R plan as we go along through the learning collaborative here. And then we're going to implement it and get more people to come work for us. And they'll be super happy if they're going to stay with us for a long time. So that's what we want. All right. That data-informed workforce plan, that's one of our core components for workforce recruitment and retention. And a really critical part of that data side, like I said a second ago, is that assessment. We want to understand what our starting point is because that allows us to set kind of our goals and benchmarks for getting to those goals as we're going through this process. And we have the R&R plan template as well as instructions and an action plan. And these are all available on our website. And when you download the slide deck that we post on the discussion board, you can actually go to this slide and each one of these images is linked. So you can click on the instructions or the template or the action plan. It'll take you right to that document. And these are fillable documents, so you can build them out and create this living document in your organization and keep updating it as you go, because it's not a one-time process. This is iterative, so you want to do this. We like to say, like, at least every year, kind of review and update things to make sure you're staying on track, and because you are all awesome, but at some point you're going to retire or move on to other positions, and you want to be able to pass on this knowledge. So that knowledge retention is really important for any organization. Okay, so a few of you did manage to take the self-assessment that the Star Center has. And then for those of you that weren't able to do that, you'll be able to do that after this session today. And it goes through a few different sections. So provider capacity, infrastructure, and so that's infrastructure around your workforce, right? It's not talking about like, is there a bridge leading to a health center? It's like, do you have the mechanisms in place to recruit and retain people? And then looking at that retention and recruitment sections of your plan. Leadership, like how on board is leadership with a lot of these things? What input might you need to give to leadership to kind of motivate them to put some of these things into practice? Compensation. So what does your compensation look like for your area and for the larger US context as a whole? And then other strategies you can use to help retain and recruit new employees. Oh, and let's see real quick before I forget, I can't copy it. Okay. All right. So like we said, data informed workforce plans. That's a really critical part. And that's why we want to start with this good assessment and really take the time to do it correctly, because that sets our starting point. And then data is how we show what progress we've made, and also examine. Oh, thank you, Helen. Got the link in there for the assessment tool. That's what I was going to do, and then I couldn't copy and paste it. Anyway, data helps us know where we're at, and it helps us track, are we going along the right course or are we getting off course, right? And it can be something as simple as, oh, we advertise positions in these 4 outlets, and we track where do we get the most candidates from, right? How many applications are we getting from, say, Indeed versus LinkedIn versus, word of mouth? Just tracking those things can help you see what is it worth putting our resources towards and what's not working for us. And so we might want to find a new resource to put our efforts into. And then it can be much more complex, right? So you can be looking at feedback from surveys, staff satisfaction surveys, and those can be a lot more complicated, and it can get you digging into much larger and more challenging issues, but ones that are really rewarding to address. And so that's kind of the importance with the data, is it's something that we need to start collecting early and then continue to do so often. Because as Dr. Michelle likes to say, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And having an opinion is not bad. If you have data to back it up, that's much better, right? And that makes it a lot easier to get change made. So let's all share our opinions and maybe some of our data. And we're going to go into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. So for the folks, we're going to try to divide you up, and hopefully each breakout room will have someone who was able to complete the self-assessment. And I'll leave this screen up for a moment. Oh, there we go. Thank you. And Helen's put into the chat the questions. So basically, if you completed the assessment, what did you learn by completing the assignment? And kind of describe the process. Did anything like really interesting pop out to you, or did you have to go find some information that you hadn't really thought about having to access before? And then if you haven't completed it yet, what are you most curious about? And what do you think might be the biggest challenge? Like, again, is there some piece of information, some aspect that you're like, oh, wow, I didn't think about trying to get a hold of that. That could be a challenge. And so just kind of share with each other. And okay, let's see. We have a quick question in the chat. Is there an overview document we can review before filling out the web form? Something that has all the questions and requirements, so we know before going to fill it out. And
So the way it works, it's in a Logia form where like every answer sort of like leads you to the next thing. So I don't think we really have it set out. That said, we're in the process of updating it, and so we do have a Word document. It just might not make a ton of sense.
yeah.
So let me check in with folks and see if we can share that. And if we can, we'll put it on the dashboard.
And you can run the assessment multiple times.
Yes.
So if you run through it once and you just kind of put in, what you have, an estimate for some, or make an estimate for some other stuff. And then later on, you're able to get the fully detailed information, say it's, number of providers in some space. You can always go back and plug those same numbers back into the estimate. Back into the assessment tool and get another feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Welcome back, folks. We hope that it's good to have some time to chat with your peers and colleagues. We'll let everyone come back. They have, as with all Zoom breakout rooms, they have that full minute to actually close out. But for those of you who are already back, we will ask for a little report out if you want to start ruminating on what you might want to report out from the group. All right. Great. Looks like everyone is back now. I was just saying to the folks who were already back, we're going to have each group, there were only 3 groups, so we're going to have each group do a little report out, high level, 2 to 3 minutes. What was the conversation like? Any high level takeaways you want to share? And we'll start with group 2, just to, make things unpredictable and exciting. Does someone from group 2 want to share how the conversation went?
In group 2. I can't remember my group number.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't know what group I was in.
That's fair. Let's just say whoever wants to share. And if you were in a group with that person, feel free to also share or not.
I'll start. I think we could have used more time. It was very interesting. We talked about the report, the assessment. 2 of us had completed it and the rest of us had not. And so it was much more involved than I thought. And it would have been very, very useful to have a actual paper copy of it ahead of time so I could prepare and pull the reports that I needed to complete it. In fact,
Okay.
I think if I did it again, I would like to do it again with the knowledge that I have now, because I think it would make for a tighter report. I really did like the self-assessment, like assessment that came out of it. That was really cool. We also talked about where our hiring areas were, where our biggest growth areas were. It seems like behavioral health was a very growing area. Talked about like, wages for MAs and dental assistants and receptionists and how that affects things. And what else did we talk about? I know Carrie and Latrell and Jonathan were in that group. And who else?
This is Adrian. I was also in the group. We talked about, we were talking about compensation and I guess filling positions, full-time employees versus some of the part-time positions and some of the struggles we were having of how some of the organizations were preferring the telehealth and telemedicine versus actually being in the office. So some of the challenges there as well.
I thought it was a very quick, informative breakout session. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you. And I will definitely check it. This is really good feedback about that several of you are saying that a printout or like a not the fill-in Logiform in advance would be helpful. So I'll work on figuring out an option for that. Who wants to go next?
I can go. I'm Pam Kinder from UCFS in Norwich. I think there were 4 of us, and actually some had done the assessment, some hadn't, and we actually used it as just an opportunity to discuss some of the issues we were having and share some information. And some of the people in the group are housing and daycare and working with realtors and the chambers and economic development organizations. So it's very helpful to hear what others are doing, and it kind of makes you feel like you're not struggling on your own. So I thought it was a really great conversation. Angela's going to share some information with us. She went to a really great conference. So sometimes just kind of leaving some time to talk to others can lead to some really great ideas. So I appreciate their input.
Yes, absolutely. It's good to hear you say that, because that's one of the goals of the Learning Collaborative, is to allow this space for folks to learn from their peers and colleagues. Because yeah, we know a lot as folks who research it, and we are always staying up to date on best and promising practices, but y'all are on the ground and you know what's working within the context of your health center. So I'm really glad that that is working. All right, who wants to share next?
This is Elaine Curtis. I can share for our group. I was in group 1, I believe. And it was the same, much like the other groups. Some of us had completed and some of us had not yet. And our takeaway from it basically was, yeah, we all seem to have a lot of the same issues right now. And we discussed some kind of out of the box things like trying to, get collaborative agreements with the community colleges and the schools around us, to work with those, to do internships and so forth, or to see if we can get, even IT or tech people from the college to, have a job and stuff like that. And we also discussed the virtual job fairs, so that some people were doing, they were successful or not. So that's, just much like the others in the group. We're still just battling the same stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And Angela, was it you who went to a very interesting conference? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, and sorry if I freeze, my computer is freezing a little bit.
No worries, I'm so sorry.
It was the AAPPR conference, so Association for Advancing Physician and Provider Recruitment, if I got that right. And I've been a member with them for a very long time, and it's a great membership to have for provider recruitment. It's all in-house provider recruiters. So they do a lot of online training as well, but I went to their conference for their first time and it was just really, really informative, especially I think the takeaway for me was I'm a small FQHC with a limited budget, of course. So a lot of free resources and tools that you can use on a very limited budget to really help offload some of the things that we're tasked with on a daily basis that aren't, that kind of prevent us from spending our time actually recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds awesome. If you're up for it, if it makes sense, if any of those resources you want to share, you want to put on the dashboard, I'm sure everyone would love this. Yeah. All right, cool. Does anyone else want to share out before we move on? Is that raising a hand or clapping hand?
I was clapping for sharing it on the dashboard.
Clapping for sharing it on the dashboard. Excellent. Awesome. All right.
I'll just share, when I did do the assessment, I was a little bit perplexed at how much I didn't know. And I couldn't complete just right away. I also thought that we were in a lot worse shape than the assessment showed me we were in. So that was encouraging. So I was discouraged because I felt like I didn't know enough, and then I was encouraged when I got the results. So.
Okay, yeah, a little bit of both. That's good to hear. Cool. All right, awesome. Thank you all so much. And yeah, we're gonna try to have breakout sessions throughout the Learning Collaborative, again, to offer that space for y'all to learn from each other and share challenges and wins as well. So now we're going to talk about, you've seen this ladder before, and we really want to talk about the community and team portions of the ladder. That's like your first steps in your recruitment planning. So thinking about community, it's important to think about what works for you and what works against you. And that is not going to be universal, for everything that we talk about is not one size fits all. And we really want to encourage you to figure out what works best in your context and for your health center and for your community. But think about who in your community are your champions. What are the things about your community that really make you stand out? And maybe I sincerely hope, and I doubt that there are any detractors in your community in terms of people, but what are some of the things that you're going to have to come up against as a challenge within your community or within your setting? So it's really important to look at what others in your community are doing. So you can think about how hospitals are recruiting folks. Could you partner with them in any way? Could you share a provider? Sometimes that's an option. Think about what else is going on in your community that might be worth noting as you think about recruitment. And then think too about regional planning initiatives. This is on the next slide. I'm speaking too soon. So yeah, basically think about what's in your community, who is already working in these spaces, and how can you partner with them. These are more those outside partners, hospitals, local providers, like Lane was talking about, community colleges. And then remember the resources that are offered within your state government and other BIPIC funded entities like your primary care associations. How can you leverage what they're doing to create those successful recruitment moments? And then further, think about what's happening in your area. What are the regional planning initiatives? How are you matching up? What are local workforce trends? And I believe we mentioned this in the last session, but in case we didn't, one of the really great tools that the STAR Center offers that can be really helpful in understanding your workforce trends and demographics are the STAR Center data profile dashboards. So every health center CEO or executive director has access to these, and we can't share the password with everyone, but your health center CEO or executive director can. So if you don't already have access to those data profile dashboards, I highly encourage you to reach out to your leadership and get access to them. And they'll really show sort of how you match up in terms of salaries and how many National Health Center Service Corps members you're utilizing and engaging with, et cetera. And then, of course, consider the changing demographics of your community. As always, we want our health center workforce to match as much as possible the communities we're serving, but also just understand the demographics of the communities they're serving and come to their work with that cultural humility and that willingness to understand different cultural backgrounds. And then, like I sort of mentioned last time, think about how you can partner with and collaborate with other entities like hospitals, private practices, schools, and other training programs. So other community considerations to think about are your local school system, your chamber of commerce, other nonprofits, folks within the local economy, and think about and try to, figure out how you're going to communicate who else benefits when you successfully recruit a clinician to work at your health center, and then who has resources that can help you. And if you can successfully communicate to folks that they'll benefit and how they'll benefit when you successfully recruit a clinician or another staff person, you can help. That'll incentivize them to help and leverage resources that you all have as a community to make that happen. And then in terms of building a team, we want you to think, in the positive and the negative again. So think about who is best suited for doing which tasks. And if there are gaps in your team, are there tasks or roles that you really would like someone to fill and you don't, like someone is just picking up that slack and it's not necessarily the best role for them? And think about how you can work to make sure that people are doing the role that is best for them and see if there are ways to fill in those gaps. And having this as a team is really important. We want you to think about creating this team in advance and making sure it's diverse and representative of your health center and the community. And we also really encourage folks to make sure that decision makers are at the table and establish those roles and responsibilities for each person. So again, as I just said, we want you to put that team together in advance. Think about general recruitment and also the position you're recruiting for. If you're recruiting for an oral health provider, think about whether it's feasible to have someone who's on the oral health team already be part of this recruitment team so that they can answer questions from candidates and can sort of give a sense of what that team is like, et cetera. And then, of course, you don't want to just be putting together a team to have checked it off the box, but you want to invite people to be part of the team and encourage them to give you feedback early and often. And then another thing, and we'll talk about this more in other later sessions, but it's really important to just always act quickly in general. We know that when candidates are applying for jobs, there's a good chance that they're applying not only to work with you, but to work with other people. And so you want to make sure that your team is poised and ready to respond to candidates, and part of this is knowing what their role is and who's responsible for what. So again, going on to going more in depth on that, having it be really clear what everyone's role is, and again, going with that strengths-based perspective. And this is, of course, not to say that people don't sometimes have to do jobs that aren't their favorite or that they don't love, but make sure that you're utilizing people's strengths to the best of your ability and to really help your team be in the best place it can be. Make sure that those responsibilities are established and understood and clear. And then again, make sure that you understand what people's strengths and skills are and also what their availability is. So going back to this example of having someone from the oral health staff on your recruitment team, you want to make sure that what their roles and responsibilities that you're assigning to them make sense within their schedule, and that they can actually accomplish what is being asked of them based on their position and what they have going on in the rest of their work. So again, some of the roles that the team could take on are defining the position. Of course, we encourage folks to have their a lot of this written in advance, but you want to make sure that as you're bringing on new folks, that your job descriptions and position descriptions are up to date. Are they defined? Does it all make sense? Think about who on your team is working with those community partners we've talked about. Think about who on the team is responsible for sourcing those candidates, getting the advertisements out to the right places, and think about if we are asking the rest of your staff to spread information about this by word of mouth, and who's really communicating that to them, and who's in charge of that. Think about who's screening and doing the interviewing, and then managing the internal logistics. These are all roles that shouldn't necessarily be all on one person. Of course, one person can do them if that makes the most sense, but they're just opportunities for bringing in other team members, and for making sure that there's multiple eyes on this project. So of course, we always like to say that when you have the right people in the right place with buy-in, you have a smooth process for your successful recruitment. So this is all, again, these are just the first 2 steps of that ladder, and there's a lot more that goes into this. But we think that starting from this place of thinking about your community, who are the right people in your community, both in the broader sense, within your region, your state, your city, your smaller, closer community, and then within your health center, who are the right people there. The right place is right where you are at your health center, and then getting that buy-in to make this process go smoothly is all really important. So that's sort of our content for now. I want to open the floor for questions. I'll give everyone a moment, or again, if you have questions for your peers and colleagues, you're welcome to do that now. And then I have a few notes about next steps, the homework, etc. And there's things in the chat, so I'm going to check that. So Mariah put in the chat that she's I should have mentioned that she's the contact person for data profile dashboards. You can send her an email at that same email we've been saying over and over again, blake@clinicians.org, if your team needs access to that login information. Because again, we send those out once a year, and it's usually in May or June. So if your CEO or ED doesn't have access right now, it's been about a year since they've been pinged about the password. All right, well, feel free to put questions in the chat, and then also to just pipe up and interrupt me. But I'm gonna go into some of the stuff for the next steps and wrap up. So as we've talked about, if you haven't already done so, please do fill out that assessment tool. It should be easy and available this time. And you can just use that link that I placed in the chat earlier as well. And then there's a community and team assignment as well that will be on the dashboard. So we'd love for you to fill that in. And then in the next session, we'll, sort of like we did today, we'll have breakout groups where we can discuss and reflect on those and go from there. As a reminder, this is what the dashboard looks like. You need to click this thing in the corner, and this is pointing at actually not the right one, but just look for the title of this one, Recruitment Boot Camp 4.0. So you'll be able to find that. And then our next session is Thursday, May 12th. And we'll be discussing priorities and budget. So this is a session where we'll really start to dig into how to create that vision and priorities for your recruitment planning. And then, we know that everyone or each health center has a different budget. So sort of like Angela was mentioning, there are different tools and things that are available depending on the size of your health center and the budget that you need to stay within. Yeah. All right. Those are all my wrap ups. This is a quick random question. Is anyone joining us in Nashville for the Workforce Symposium? No worries if not. I just want to be on the lookout. We've got 2 Chop Tank staff. Awesome. Thanks. Is that how you say it? Chop Tank?
You got it.
Yes. Excellent. Love that. All right, great. Are there any other questions, comments, things you want to add? To White House Clinic staff will be there too. That's awesome. And yeah, like I said, I will be following up about this printed out or in advance. Obviously, I won't print it out for you, but the advanced self-assessment to look at so you know all the data. Again, as you're thinking of any questions, we're going to launch the evaluation for this session. As Alex mentioned, this is really important for us to, continue getting better in what we are offering, and also we report it back to BIPIC. And that is not me saying, "Oh, give us a high score, give us a score you think we deserve," but do fill it out. If we need this score, whatever it is, more than we need just 1 5 or whatever. So it's really important. As you all know, we have deliverables that we need to get, and we appreciate you helping us with those. And again,
certainly
oh no, go for it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just saying, any specific feedback, like Helen said, knowing like, oh, it would be really helpful if people had all the questions the assessment is going to ask beforehand to prepare for it. Any other feedback, if you think of it and want to email it to us, like we take that seriously, and that obviously is helpful. We want to know if people weren't satisfied with the session, but if it was for a specific reason, that's really helpful because we can try to address that.
Yes, absolutely. I've also made a note of that more time in the breakouts will be good. So we'll try to give you more time in future sessions. So like Alex is saying, any and all feedback like that is really helpful to us because this is supposed to be for you and good for you and helpful for you. All right, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I'll give you 5 minutes of your day back. But please do fill out the session evaluation before you head out. And Alex and I will hang out here in case there are any other questions. Mariah will also hang out here. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here.
Thanks, everyone.